I participated in the YVO, which is a four-country meeting between the four ministers of justice within the kingdom. However, at the last minute, the Minister of Justice of the Netherlands had to cancel his trip. His delegation still came, but the minister himself was unable to attend due to, of course, the cabinet crisis in the Netherlands and reallocation of portfolios. And, he's now has part of the very famous Asiel dossier, and that required some in-person meetings last week, so he was unable to make it with us. However, the three ministers of the other islands and the other countries found it important to still have this meeting take place. Typically, it happens in January and June. In January, we were actually unable to have a YVO because of the elections in Aruba and Curacao, so we found it even more important for us to still meet and discuss important matters. So we held both bilateral and tripartite meetings. So I met separately with the ministers of Justice of Aruba and then with the Minister of Justice of Curacao, but then we also had a tripartite together. During those meetings, we addressed deeper systemic issues that all three of us face: staffing shortages, aging infrastructure within the justice sector, and of course, increasing pressure on all our prison systems. One point that I raised with some urgency is the homicide rate in St. Martin, which remains higher than in our sister islands. And that's true for both the Dutch and French sides of St. Martin. We spoke very frankly about early intervention for at-risk youth, the growing influence of organized crime, and the need for kingdom-wide community-based strategies. We also reflected on how to make the YVO more impactful. As I shared with my colleagues, we all face similar challenges, so let's work together more strategically and together. So in that vein, when it comes to our youth and youth crime, actually Curacao is taking the lead right now and going to work out a plan of approach, which we will then discuss in our next meeting in January, which is actually being held in St. Martin for the next YVO. While there, I also had the opportunity to visit Aruba's correctional facility, KIA, and then got to speak to them firsthand about valuable insights, what they apply, how they approach their prison system, and also to compare, the infrastructure of Point Blanche versus what it looks like on some of our sister islands. So that was a very helpful and useful trip. And I also, of course, had the opportunity to, in person, extend my gratitude and appreciation to both Minister Dowers of Aruba and Minister Hato of Curacao for their assistance during the Point Blanche prison crisis. They both assisted St. Martin by, very quickly actually mobilizing guards that we could utilize and that came here. And, I think that's really that perfect example of what cooperation within the kingdom can look like. And it was important to me to be able to meet them in person and not just over the phone. So that was a good opportunity for that as well. Then I'll move on from the trips. And I did want to address the recent media claims that I also came across yesterday while I was in travel, saying that customs officers were engaged in a go-slow. The management team of the Department of Customs has already put out a press release, but as minister, I also wanted to make it absolutely clear that customs remains fully operational. There has been no disruption in service, and I'm not sure where this go-slow came from. It was not mentioned to the ministry. And of course, I was reassured by the customs management team yesterday that the officers continue to carry out their duties with professionalism and that the ministry remains in active dialogue to resolve any long-standing concerns in a sustainable manner that the customs workers may have. So again, no go-slow, no formal communication of a go-slow, and everything remains operational. And again, we are in discussion with all the different departments in justice to address any long-standing concerns and issues that they have. Then, with respect to the prison, we're continue on that path towards stability. We're in what we now are calling our recovery phase. And inmates' housing has returned to normal and visitations have resumed. I'm also pleased to report that recreational and rehabilitation programs are gradually being reinstated. And we're also, I think, what was a nice opportunity here was that we were able to really kind of reignite, no pun intended, our relationship with the probation services, who are also now more active in terms of providing programs and did a Father's Day program with the inmates. And So that's been nice to see as well. And in the broader structure of the prison reconstruction, and as I've continued to say, it's been very important to me that we start our soft component reform now and not when the new facility is there. In that vein, we've been in touch with the UNODC, who would be our implementing partner of the soft components. And right now we're in the final phases of formalizing that agreement for them to actually hopefully start within the next month or two. So that would be great, because that's also looking at how we can give more programs, more rehabilitation to the inmates right now. I also had an opportunity to speak with a group in Aruba that was actually currently providing programs in Kia, in their correctional facility. Their director is going to be visiting St. Martin in the next 2 weeks. And we have a meeting scheduled with them to see perhaps how they can also assist with deploying similar programs that they have here in the prison. They're able to do a lot using European funding. So I think that that's something very interesting to us, because wherever, of course, we can gain from utilizing any types of grants or funding from abroad, that's always a win-win for us. So we have those coming up, and I hope to be able to share some more updates on that front over the coming weeks. Then, of course, the LBAs. There were already some press releases, but just to reinforce that as well, batch 13 has been signed and distributed, and batches 14, 15, and 16 are currently under review. When I say under review, we're busy finalizing that the files are complete. And as we had explained in Parliament, we're using a new structure with the SOAB, doing that validation process to ensure that all the calculations are correct, that you're going through all the different payroll systems, etc. All those files are there, so we're ensuring that everything is complete. And I know that there's been a lot of pressure. We've said that, kind of to be safe, where we're thinking Q4 of this year, that we would have everything complete. I know that people would like to see more structured timelines. I'm hoping that within the next, maybe during this week or the week after, that I can have a stronger indication of exact timelines, because right now it's still kind of making sure all of the information is there. And of course, we're talking about hundreds of files. So right now we're still in discussion with SWAB to get a clear indication on those timelines. So I'm hoping that that is also something that I can communicate with a little more clarity instead of just saying Q4. But I do want to assure everybody that it's the utmost priority that everything is complete within the next few months. So Q4 is actually very soon. So at least that, I think, is at least some type of timeline indication. So then just to be clear, batches 14 and 15 are all remaining justice workers besides the prison. So 14, 15 is anyone who was still outstanding from the immigration department, from customs, from KPSM, etc. Batch 16 is the prison. The whole batch is the prison. It's 95, and that's so just to give an indication of numbers. So 13, 14, 15, and 16, the entire rest of the Justice Ministry, and then of course there's a separate batch that would be just the department heads, because that was already a discussion from before that the department heads would come at the end, from I think a place of solidarity. Yes. Then, finally, not necessarily too justice related, but as we approach the end of June, of course, graduation season is upon us. I tried to make a nail appointment, and they were very busy with prom and graduation and everything else, so I know. So to all the graduates, whether you're in primary school, high school, university, congratulations. You've worked hard, stayed the course, and now you're stepping into your next chapter. As the Minister of Justice, I encourage you to carry your values, your discipline, and your dreams with you. St. Martin needs bright, bold minds, and know that we believe in you.
Are you SXM insured? Do you have a valid medical insurance status? SXM is cardless. Request your My SXM account today and enter the virtual office of SXM. Go to sxv.sx and sign up now.
SXM, yeah, your social health insurances.
24/7 TV programming on www.stmartinmediacenter.com, SXM Daily News, PBS NewsHour, Now You Know, Com programs, documentary, entertainment, sports events, Saturday children's hours, religion programs, and movies. Click on SXM TV broadcast to see your favorite programs.
So my first question has to do with road safety license plates. I believe that vehicles by law are required to have 2 license plates on the vehicle, one front, one back, and that those license plates should be clearly visible, not obscured. If you notice on the roads, if you do an unofficial survey, you will see that there are many cars with only one license plate on the back, and very often you'll see the license plates are with a heavy black tint over it. So number one, is that correct? And what's the legal requirement? But the second part to that is what I've heard from reliable sources is that there's a big increase in terms of hit and run accidents. Many vehicles here, people have only third-party insurance. So when they are the victim of a hit and run, so in other words, another car hits them, runs, there's no way to identify the car because of what I just asked about. And then the driver of the car who's been hit, their insurance will not cover the repairs to their car because they only have third-party insurance, which many of the vehicles here do. So how does, justice, liability, and responsibility correlate to that increase of hit and run cases?
Thank you, Emil. Maybe a couple of these, we'll follow up in writing, because sometimes when we say things here, if you say something just wrong, it becomes a clip on the internet. But indeed, off the top of my head, we do require, I think there's even measurements for the size of the license plate. That, of course, is regulated then, if there's a sticker, et cetera, by the Ministry of Finance when it comes to the payment of that road tax. But indeed, visible license plates at the front and the back. What I can do is, of course, make this a point with the police to discuss, enforcement of that. I see it as well. Oftentimes, when I'm driving and then I can't even see the license plate in front of me because there's this plastic film. Sometimes they're old with the sun and everything, and they start to get a little diffuse, and it's difficult to see that license plate. So yes, I don't know that that's the only contributing factor, of course, in a hit and run, or that people who have an obscured license plate are more likely to commit a hit and run. But we will. I will follow up to see those numbers. Maybe that would be something interesting to see if we have seen an increase in hit and run. I can provide that data. From the police department. Then the question about insurance, and I was actually discussing this with the Minister of Finance, because when it comes to vehicle insurance, that ordinance is actually managed by the Minister of Finance and not the Minister of Justice. And actually, there should be a type of fund that the insurance companies have to pay into, and that are meant for cases like if damage is caused by an individual who was not insured, or in the case of a hit and run where you can't determine anymore who caused that damage, etc. So I think we need to try to look into activating this, and I know that that's been a point of hers to look into. So I know it on paper it's there, but in practice I believe not. But I'm saying that as Minister of Justice, and I can't imagine that there is a fund like this. So those, at least the legal safeguards are there. And, it was similar to my, to when I started about the CFATF, when I talked about that effectiveness being an important point of the way that we're assessed, because it's not just oftentimes about having it there on paper. It's about, am I actually effective in using it? And I think that those are things where, when in terms of effectiveness, that we can make some steps and improvements as a country. So I'll follow up with you in writing with the data on those accidents, and get any information I can from the police about controls.
Regarding the JVO in Aruba, what insights did you get from your one-on-one conversations with Minister of Justice from Curaçao, Shelton Hato, about the crime fund and the many projects that are funded yearly in Curaçao from the crime fund? To the questions from the Daily Herald, you answered that on St. Martin, no projects have been funded because nobody applied for funding. But how would people or organizations know that they could apply for funding? Who is eligible for funding? How much could they ask? What is the minimum, maximum amount that would be received from the crime fund, and how do they go about this?
So thank you, Jacqueline. Actually, funny enough, Curaçao uses their crime fund in a large way to supplement the operations of the Ministry of Justice, which is not what, of course, a little broader. So that was an interesting insight. But of course, Curaçao, I think, had a crime fund with 25 million guilders in it. So I understand that. But in terms of course, we answered these questions to Parliament as well. Part of the country packages is an amendment to the legislation and putting this policy in place when it comes to the behavior and the control of the fund, and putting a committee in place and things like that to be able to address that. Because up to now, of course, it has been incidental every time. So when it comes to how can people know, what I have done as the Minister of Justice is reached out to institutions directly where I believe that they can provide something that fits into the realm of crime prevention, because that's the way that the ordinance is structured right now. It has to have a character of crime prevention. And then what we think about, and at least for me, what has been an important one that I'm really looking for projects to be able to fund maybe this year and into next year for the youth, really, because I think what better place to start with an investment than to invest in projects that in our schools. So we're in contact with the Ministry of Education. We're in contact with an instructor of martial arts and things like that to look at structured programs for some of our youth. And then of course we've been in touch with the St. Martin Youth Brigade to look at what type of projects can we do in that realm. But it's not the only realm, of course, that you could think of in terms of crime prevention. So yes, the idea is to put kind of more of a broad-based policy in place, and of course then decide, okay, how much a year do we have to spend for projects, and that then of course you can make that assessment. But all of these things are nice to say in a perfect world where we have lots of capacity to write policy, which the reality is that we really do not, especially within the Ministry of Justice. And I do have right now, I'm in many conversations both with my partners in Aruba and Curaçao, and also with the Netherlands, to look for technical assistance for how we can get help as a country when it comes to strategic policy advisors and being able to do this work. So, because a lot of times we see as well within the Ministry of Justice, there's, even on a kingdom level, there's a lot of as we say, like pots of money. The issue is that we don't have the capacity to write a plan of approach because we simply don't have the people in-house because everybody else is so busy with the day-to-day tasks of the Ministry of Justice. And then on top of that, we're missing the implementation capacity because it's one thing to have a plan, but then you have to implement the plan. So we're looking at, I'm having those discussions where I also had in the Netherlands before I left, while I was there in person, and then also while I was in Aruba on one of the days that there weren't any AVO meetings, I also had a good conversation with the DG of Justice and Security from the Netherlands. And we had a lot of these conversations to see how we can be assisted in terms of technical assistance from the Netherlands or from Aruba, Curacao, etc. So those things are coming. They're on paper. We really want to have them. But a lot of times now we're constantly having to set priorities and choose one thing over the next because that's just the reality that we're facing.
Are you Asset V insured? Do you have a valid medical insurance status? Asset V is cardless. Request your My Asset V account today and enter the virtual office of Asset V. Go to assetv.sx and sign up now.
Asset V, yeah, your social health insurances.
24/7 TV programming on www.stmartinmediacenter.com, SXM Daily News, PBS NewsHour, Now You Know, com programs, documentary, entertainment, sports events, Saturday children's hours, religion programs, and movies. Click on SXM TV broadcast to see your favorite programs.
Still out west, concerns about the response time of emergency crews following a deadly crash along the Belmont Main Road in Westmoreland. Romarda Lyons explains.
This 39-year-old man, a fisherman, was part of a search and rescue team for an 11-year-old boy who was washed away on Monday. Minutes to 10 that night, in his final moments, he was hoping first responders would come to his rescue, but they didn't come in time. The man was involved in an accident along the Belmont Main Road in Westmoreland after two vehicles collided. I spoke with two women who were on the scene who said he was pinned down in his car for almost an hour. As they first approached the wreckage, they saw smoke and airbags inside the fisherman's vehicle. After a closer look, he was inside groaning.
At first, him never that breathe so slow. And you could have seen the fight until he start get slower and slower until me just did it till the man just dead. The man literally took his last breath in the car.
The woman said she called for help for almost an hour to no avail. Her call log here shows her first call to the police at 9:54 p.m., then the fire brigade at 9:56. Her last call to the fire brigade, 10:23. She believes the man could have been saved.
You know, I always hear people talk about it, but witnessing it firsthand really goes to show the major gaps that are in our healthcare system. We're down there, and from the reach, I call the ambulance, I call the police, I call the firefighter, I call everybody. I may tell you, say, over 20 minutes later, nobody no show up. Nobody was there. When we go, one woman down a bush, the woman fly out of the car, the next man then on the road lay down, and the next man in a film car a fight for him life.
She believes the man could have been saved.
I feel like as much as him did get seriously injured, had people come on the scene in time, him could at least have a chance of living.
At the second vehicle involved, a man and his spouse were crying out in pain. The woman was thrown from the vehicle after the impact, and the passers-by showed up just in time to see the man crawling from the wrecked vehicle to later lay on his back waiting for help. She says when the police eventually arrived,
and them say them away from firefighter, we ask for the ambulance thing. Them tell we say, oh, the ambulance normally come with firefighter. When firefighter reach, firefighter alone come turn up a look.
The National Road Safety Council listed 3 possible causes for the collision: failure to keep to near side or proper traffic lane, excessive speeding, or swerving without due care. Now, since the start of the year, 183 people have been killed in traffic accidents. Now, the other woman recalled trying to help the injured couple.
He told us that, his wife was also in the vehicle and she's in the bushes because apparently she was thrown from the car. So, I went around the car, and this whole time we were on hold for the police and the ambulance. Went on the other side, saw her in the bushes, but I couldn't lift her. And she was, crying out that she was in a lot of pain.
The women say eventually, the 2 injured individuals were taken to hospital by passers-by in private vehicles. Romarda Lyons, TVJ News.